Okay, today we're going to talk about the area of a circle. Remember, area of a circle is the amount of surface covered by a given circle. There is only one formula that you can use to find the area of a circle. That formula is area equals pi times the radius squared. We use pi, we use 3.14 to represent pi, and r stands for the radius. Notice there is only one formula. That means you cannot use a diameter to find area. It always has to be the radius that you're plugging in. Starting with the first one, the first question you need to ask yourself is, did they give you the radius? So this is the center to an outside edge. So this is the radius of the circle. Once you're sure you have the radius of the circle, you're going to write your formula. Area equals pi times the radius squared. Now you're going to plug in the numbers that you know. Area equals, we can substitute in 3.14 for pi. For the radius, we can substitute in 9, and then we square it. Remember that when you are squaring a number, it is not the number times 2, it is the number times itself. So like on this one, it's not 9 times 2, it's 9 times 9. You can plug all of this into your calculator. If you're plugging it into your calculator, this is what I would do. I would do 3.14, hit my times key, then I would open a parentheses, put in 9, and now look to just the left of the 7 key. There's a key that looks like that, has a little x squared. Push that key, it should give you an exponent for the 9. Close your parentheses, hit enter, and you should get, for this one, the area of the circle is 254 and 34 hundredths. It needs a label. Yards is our label. But remember, we're talking about area. So it isn't just yards, it is yards squared. Looking at our next one. Ooh. First question you always ask yourself is, did they give you the radius? On this particular one, they did, so we're going to go ahead and write our formula. Area is pi times the radius squared. Plugging in all the things I know. Area equals pi, we plug in 3.14. For the radius, we do 1 and 2/10. And then don't forget that little squared key, so hit the squared key, should pull up the exponent. When I plug it all into my calculator, 3.14 times 1 and 2/10 squared, I get that the area of my circle is 4 and 5,216 10,000ths. It needs a label. The label is meters squared. On these that have longer decimals, I would go ahead and just write the full decimal. That way you don't have to worry about accidentally missing something because you rounded incorrectly. Next one. First question I'm going to ask myself, do they give me the radius? And on this one, it is from the center to the outside of the circle, so that is indeed the radius. Because I know that they've given me the radius, I can use my formula. Area is pi times the radius squared. Plugging in what we know. Plugging in 3.14 for pi. The radius is 5, so we'll do 5 squared. And now we're going to plug it all into the calculator. 3.14 times 5 squared tells me that the area of this circle is 78 and 5/10 meters squared. There are 3 problems underneath it. I'd like you to pause the video and do those 3 problems on your own. Unpause the video and then check your answers with mine. All right, for our first one, they gave you the radius, so area is pi times the radius squared. Area equals 3.14 times 15 squared. When I put it into the calculator, 3.14 times 15 squared, the area should be 706 and 5/10 yards squared. For our second one, they did give us the radius, so area is pi times the radius squared. Area is 3.14 times 100 squared. Plugging it all into my calculator, 3.14 times 100 squared gives me an area of 31,400 inches squared. Last but not least, they give me the radius, so area equals pi times the radius squared. Area equals 3.14 for pi. The radius is 10 and 4/10, and I square it. Plugging it all into my calculator, 3.14 times 10 and 4/10 squared gives me an area of 339 and 6,224 10,000ths, needs a label, inches squared. Go ahead and turn it over to the next page. All right, on our next page, you'll notice in our circle, this is not the radius. This is a line segment that passes from edge to edge of my circle, and it passes through the center, which means that the measurement that they've given me is not the radius, but rather the diameter. Remember from our last unit, the diameter is made up of 2 of a radius. So to find a radius when they give you the diameter, you take the diameter, which is 8 on this one, and you divide it by 2. So anytime they give you the diameter, to find the radius, you simply divide the number by 2. On this one, 8 divided by 2 is 4, so the radius of this circle is 4 feet. Now that I have the radius, I can go back and I can use my area formula. Area pi times the radius squared. Plugging in what we now know, area equals 3.14 for pi. For the radius, you have to go back and use the number that you found. So for this particular one, it was 4, and we square it. So remember, you're plugging the radius in there. You cannot plug the diameter in there. Putting that in your calculator, 3.14 times 4 squared means that the area of this circle is 50 and 24 hundredths, needs a label, feet squared. Let's do another one. On this particular one, first thing we ask ourselves is, did they give us the radius? The answer is no, they gave us the diameter. So now we need to use that to find the radius. To find the radius, you take the diameter, 15, and divide it by 2. 15 divided by 2 means that the radius of this circle is 7.5 yards. Now that I have the radius, I can go ahead and calculate the area. Area is pi times the radius squared. Plugging in everything we know. For pi, 3.14. For the radius, we're going to use 7.5, and we're going to square that. Remember, we used the number we calculated as the radius. Plugging all of that into my calculator, 3.14 times 7.5 squared, I get that the area of my circle is 176 and 625 thousandths, needs a label, yards squared. Let's do another one together. First thing, you need to decide if they gave you the radius, and on this particular one, again, they did not, so we need to calculate the radius. To calculate the radius, we take the diameter, 6 4/10, and divide it by 2. 6 4/10 divided by 2 is 3 2/10 feet for my radius. Now that I know the radius, I can go back and find the area. Area is pi times the radius squared. Plugging it in, 3.14 goes in for pi. 3 2/10 is the measurement we found as the radius from using the diameter. We square that, plug it all into your calculator. 3.14 times 3 2/10 squared means that the area for this circle is 32 1,536 feet squared. There are 3 problems underneath it. Do those 3 on your own, and then we'll go over them together. Okay, now that you've had a chance to do them, let's go over each one. On the first one, remember you need to find the radius first. So on this one, the radius is 26 divided by 2. So that means that the radius is 13 kilometers. Now we use our area formula to find the area of the circle. Area pi times the radius squared. Area equals 3.14 times 13 squared. When I plug it into my calculator, 3.14 times 13 squared, I get that the area of this circle is 530 66 kilometers squared. On my next one, first, because they give me the diameter, I have to find the radius. To find the radius, we're going to take the diameter, 8 2/10, and divide it by 2. 8 2/10 divided by 2 is, 8 2/10 divided by 2 is 4 1/10. Now we're going to plug that in to find the area of our circle. Pi times the radius squared. Plugging in what we know, 3.14 for pi. The radius is 4 1/10 squared. Plugging it all into my calculator, 3.14 times 4 1/10 squared tells me that the area for this circle is 52 7,834 10,000ths meters squared. Last one. Same thing as all the other circles. They gave us the diameter, so that means I need to find the radius first. To find the radius, I need to take the diameter and divide it by 2. 33 divided by 2 is 16.5 yards for my radius. Using the formula for the area of a circle, pi times the radius squared. Area equals 3.14 times the radius, which was 16.5 squared. Plugging it all into my calculator, 3.14 times 16.5 squared tells me that the area for my circle is 854 865 thousandths yards squared. All right, go ahead and flip it over. We've got some more problems to do. Maggie is creating a cushion for a circular stool. The stool has a diameter of 14 inches. How much fabric will she need to cover the stool? Because they're asking us to cover something, we're finding the area. So remember, area equals pi times the radius squared. Unfortunately, because they have not given us the radius, we're going to have to calculate the radius. To find the radius, we take the diameter, which was 14, and divide it by 2. 14 divided by 2 means that the radius for this circle is 7 inches. Plugging in what we know, here we go, area equals 3.14 times the radius is 7, and we're going to square it. Plugging it into our calculator, 3.14 times 7 squared means that the area that she needs to cover is 153 and 86 hundredths, and then we need to label inches squared. Finally, since this is a word problems require a sentence as an answer. She needs 153 and 86 hundredths inches squared of fabric. Looking at our next one, while it is in word form, I would not consider this a word problem. So on something like this, you would not need a sentence. There are two like this in your homework. I believe they are numbers 7 and 8. So on these two, you would not need a sentence, but on your homework, I believe 9 and 10, those are word problems, so you would need sentences. First thing, because it says we're finding the area, I'm going to use the formula for area of the circle. Area is pi times the radius squared. Now I'm going to read through my problem. They gave me the radius of 37 inches. Because they gave me the radius, I can go ahead and just plug it straight into my formula. Area equals 3.14 times the radius, which was 37, and we're going to square that. Type it all into your calculator. 3.14 times 37 squared. I get that the area of this circle is 4,298 and 66 hundredths inches squared. And like I said, I wouldn't consider this a word problem, so there is no need to write a sentence. There are two problems underneath. Go ahead and pause the video. Try these two on your own, unpause the video, and check your work with me. Now that you've had a chance to do it, here we go. The Martin family is getting an in-ground circular pool with a radius of 10 feet. What is the area of grass that will need to be removed to put the pool in? They already told me I'm finding the area. So the formula that I need is area equals pi times the radius squared. Rereading back through our sentence, they gave me the radius, and it's 10 feet. And since they gave me the radius, I can go ahead and just plug it straight in. Area equals 3.14 times the radius is 10 squared. Plugging it all into my calculator, 3.14 times 10 squared gives me 314. Needs a label, feet squared. Because this is a word problem, you would need a sentence. They need to remove 314 feet squared of grass. Last one, find the area of a circle with a diameter of 7 yards. Excuse me. So first area is pi times the radius squared. On this particular one, they gave me the diameter, not the radius. So that means I need to use that information to find the radius. To find the radius, we take the diameter and divide it by 2. 7 divided by 2 means that my radius is 3.5 yards. Now that I have my radius, I can plug that into my formula. So area equals 3.14 in for pi. For the radius, I got 3.5, so I'm going to plug that in right here and square it. When I plug it into my calculator, 3.14 times 3.5 squared tells me that the area of this circle is 38 and 465 thousandths yards squared.